start off at the beginning. Thank you for showing up and thank you for commenting on that. So this week is week 56. I am down 65 pounds. I lost 1.2 pounds. I think that should be say 1.8 pounds, which is a pretty darn good week. And everything is going well. The interesting thing for me is that this drug is waning for me. I said in the beginning of June that I wanted to go up in dose. And then my doctor suggested to me that I stay on this level drug until he sees me again, which is completely fine. I'm glad that he has my health at the best interest of me, and so I'm fine with that. And unfortunately, that means that that is the end of August, and so I will finish the box I have now. I will finish the next box and then start somewhere in September if he allows me to then go up in dose. But it's been fascinating to me to see what has faded for me and what has stuck around. So for example, my digestion has gone back to normal. My food cravings have gone back to normal. So that's interesting. I never had much of a cravings problem. What has come back is the ADHD. That has come roaring back. And I started noticing it in small ways, like I would miss exits. Driving is one of the first signs I see, that all of a sudden I'm like, get off on exit 180. Oh, and I would just drive right past it. I just couldn't stay focused for that. I have built guardrails around myself so that I can work. To-do list, notes, reminders, to keep myself functioning at work. But at my home life, I'm not quite as problematic. I have lists here to do my podcast, to set up things correctly so that I do everything in a schedule. But even last week, I forgot to take my shot on Wednesday. I forgot to take my shot today on Wednesday. I mean, it is Wednesday. I have never had a problem with that. And so that has been an interesting problem. And not only that, but last Wednesday, I was messing around with this new software I got. And then suddenly I'm like, what are you doing? You have a show today. We do a Wednesday recording about this Mounjaro experience. So that was weird that I almost completely forgot to record this session. What happens next is, interesting to me as much as it is to you. But the question is that what happens when this drug stops working? Now, I'm still losing weight. My blood sugar is still good, but I have a feeling that's because I weigh 65 pounds less than I did. So I think that the weight loss has kicked me back into a healthy set. I'm not having Diet Coke cravings like I did, but I've been off of it for over a year. And I think as long as I stay away from it, I won't get caught back up into the Diet Coke thing again. That's going to be my number one rule. No pop. I am not drinking any pop at all when I get off of this drug because clearly I have a huge addiction to it. And I got caught in Diet Mountain Dew ages ago. I had surgery and was on painkillers for weeks. So then I got off of the Diet Mountain Dew and went right back on to the Diet Coke addiction. So we're just not even going to do that again. But the other thing that I mentioned is the fact that ADHD is a problem for me. And what's interesting about it is that I struggle with it, often. But like I said, it affects my personal life a little bit more than it affects my home life. My work life. And I just forget things at home because I have so many structures at work, nothing gets lost. But here at home, I'm not so disciplined about it. And so, like I said, I've noticed I've driven past exits. I've forgotten about things. I got off on my schedule when it came to recording these episodes. So that's been interesting. And I talked to someone, and I'll put her link in the notes here, who is an expert at ADHD and helping people build systems around themselves to make sure that they can do very well, keep going and keep focusing. And she's really fantastic. And I told her about this, and her curiosity was, I wonder what the mechanism is. And I don't really know because I'm not a brain scientist or a doctor, but I am a psych major, which rears its ugly head often. But there's been a couple of theories on it, and I started doing research about what it is that could be causing the ADHD to come back while GLP-1 is waning. And the first suggestion someone said, well, overweight people have a higher incidence of ADHD. Well, okay, except for all this time I have weighed 65 pounds more to here, and I didn't have it. And then when the drug faded, I have it again. I weigh less than I technically have in a year. So it can't be that. Someone else suggested the gut biome is possibly to blame. There's sort of a gut-brain connection between how your gut biome is operating and how your brain is operating. But it's only been 6 weeks. Did I lose everything that I had for a whole year because of just a few weeks of this drug not working for me? So I don't think it could be that either. So then I started doing deeper dives. They have noticed when it comes to comments from people that people all over Reddit, people all over different blogs and everything else saying that this has fixed my ADHD better than any of the drugs I was assigned just for treating it. And I've never been on any ADHD drug, but it is resolving people's problems left and right. So the first suggestion is that people are talking about maybe GLP-1 has something to do with how the dopamine is monitored in your brain. And dopamine is that thing that makes you feel satisfied when you complete a task or start a task. It's what causes people to get addicted to gambling. Oh, I put a quarter in. I put a quarter in. And every time they do that, they get a hit. And so it is a cause of addiction. And if you look at my DNA profile, it said if I smoked, drank, did drugs, I would most likely do so to excess. So I clearly have some kind of a dopamine problem because dopamine, they believe, has a huge reason to blame for ADHD and dopamine issues. Then the other part of it is dopamine also regulates problems with inattention. And inattention is see, look at me, I'm fading already, but unable to focus on things. I have had that. That has been one of my biggest problems. Impulsivity, acting without thinking. Now, I don't do that with the dangerous things, but I do that with very common mundane things. Hyperactivity, fidgeting, moving around. Now, I'm a fidgeter, and I learned in school not to move around and get in trouble with the teacher. I was the good kid in school, so I learned not to move around much, but I fidget. And emotional reactivity, which it tends to me like spouting out, kind of getting these flash reactions. I do not have that. And so that is something that happens with dopamine and ADHD. And so they sort of feel, because dopamine is being affected now by the GLP-1, that it is causing this dopamine regulation. Now, if you look at my DNA and my genetics, and please don't because it's like private, is that I don't make dopamine. According to my DNA, I don't make dopamine, and I don't make serotonin, which is kind of weird. And it's sort of like dopamine, when you don't make it, causes addiction, and serotonin, when you don't make it, causes depression. And I thought, okay, well, there we go. That kind of makes some sense. So it can lead to all sorts of issues. I don't have depression issues, but I do have impulsive addictions, but they were never anything like alcohol, drugs, that kind of thing. It was always, I would get into like a book series. I got into the Wild West, and suddenly everything in my house was decorated in Wild West. I got into podcasting, and I went into it 100%. But for some people, it shows up in either nicotine or alcohol or sugar cravings, that kind of thing. Hi, Charles. Thank you for joining. Just to let you know, this software allows me to answer questions live. So if something spikes your interest here, just go ahead and ask a question, and I'm happy to answer those questions because I can see it right here. And same thing with you, Witherbucket, as well. So that's one possibility, is that GLP-1 is affecting the dopamine systems in your brain and regulating them when before they were unregulated and uncontrollable. And so it kind of calms down. That fits with me in food because, like I said, I didn't have craving problems, but I had food addiction problems where I would just get obsessed with, I want to eat a steak or I want to eat popcorn, and I couldn't get it out of my head until I did. And boredom, impulsivity kinds of things. Oh, I'm just going to get a snack for no reason. I'm not hungry. I didn't want anything to eat, but I decided to do it anyway. And the other part of it is they talk about the GLP-1 as being regulatory of brain receptors. The brain itself makes GLP-1, and it will help, obviously with regulating blood sugar, slow digestion. It does all the things that we hope it to do to help with diabetes and help with brain, but specifically in the hypothalamus and the frontal cortex, reward centers, it affects that too. And they believe that it helps with emotional regulation, impulse control, and what they call the executive. The executive allows you to make decisions and make wise decisions, and it's what keeps all of us on track. And when you have ADHD, your executive is sort of quiet. It doesn't rule over us like it should. And so some people are saying, well, maybe the GLP-1 is crossing the blood-brain barrier. If you didn't know, there's a thing that tries to prevent microbes, certain poisons, certain things from going from our blood and our system up into our brain, but some things are allowed to go through that. And it may be that the GLP-1 is breaking that barrier because the brain also produces some GLP-1. They say that the food noise then may have to do, like I said, with the regulation of dopamine and getting rid of some of those impulsive reward-seeking behaviors. Right now, where it looks like, I read a bunch of research articles last night. I work in the research industry and in psychology class, and I worked with a professor who did research. And so the one skill I got in helping me in podcasting and everything else was the ability to read research papers. So that's kind of helpful right now. Is they don't know what the cause is. They don't know what causes ADHD entirely, and they don't know why the GLP-1s is having such an impact on people. But it's also doing more about fixing alcoholism, drug addiction, food addiction, and so it is having a bigger impact on people, and they're now starting to do trials on seeing if they can break really awful addictions with people with GLP-1s. Now, I mentioned I was addicted to Diet Coke. I was drinking about 5 to 6 cans of Diet Coke a day, and I haven't had one since the day I took my first shot. I tried it. Well, I would say I took 2 sips out of it, and I thought, oh, this tastes like brown water. I don't get it. Why was I drinking so much of this? It completely just did something where it just broke me like instantly of this addiction. I haven't had, like I said, 1 can of it. I had 2 sips of it, and I couldn't do it. For me, I noticed that the big thing is that when this drug was working full force, all of a sudden it was like I was in a room with, I explained it. I used to go to Gen Con, if any of you are nerds out there, but big conferences with lights and noise and all sorts of things. And my brain felt like that. Like I told someone, it's like a river where thoughts are flowing all over the place. And as soon as I started taking this drug, it suddenly felt like I was just in there by myself. I could focus. I could think about things. I used to have things going on all the time. And suddenly that went away with the GLP-1 drugs. And so I've now become more productive. I've been able to focus, actually think about a thought from beginning to end, remember which exit I'm supposed to get off on the next road. And so it's really been, it sort of helps my brain pause for a minute and think. And that has been pretty incredible for me. But like I said, right now, I think the drug is not working on me much at all. And like I said, I feel that particular piece coming back. I'm trying very hard not to overeat because I think that's where my overeating came from. Today, my boss very kindly ordered a Chipotle bowl for me. And in the past, I've not been able to eat more than a third of it. And suddenly I found myself eating and I looked down and I'm like, oh, you almost ate over half of this and you could easily finish this. So I already can tell my ability to eat too much has gone up. I've been having that urge to snack when I didn't have it before. And now like I said, I am trying very hard not to because I just got done losing 65 pounds. And the last thing I want to do is gain this back. And I told my friend that I said, we went out somewhere and I ate like half of everything. And she goes, well, I thought the drug's not working on you anymore. And I said, it's not, but I'm developing a food problem because I don't want to eat anything too much because I don't want to gain any weight back with this. And she says, are you working your way into an eating disorder? And I said, well, I sure hope not. And I don't think I'm disciplined enough nor focused enough to have a eating disorder. So I don't think that that's what's going to happen, but I do want to keep my eye on it, by all. And so I started looking then, exactly then what it is I can do in order to kind of keep away from the ADHD problems I had before. And here's just a few tips that I worked on. I've been working on this my whole life. If you listen to the other videos on Start with Small Steps, I had ADHD, I noticed when I was a kid. I noticed I was not like other kids. I couldn't focus. I would stare out a window and I'd be gone. And all of a sudden I'd wake up and it would be like 50 minutes later. So some things that I did in order to basically help that is I created some schemes like I take to-do lists. I have to-do lists and schedules and reminders upon reminders. I use an app called Todoist, and I can set all the reminders I need to remind myself to get things done. I have done things like Pomodoro method, or what they call time box. That is something that you set a schedule so that you stay from this time to this time, and not very long time, maybe 20 minutes, 15 minutes. I am going to work on cleaning my kitchen, or I'm going to work on this particular project. I need to pay my property taxes. I am going to do it, and I schedule it within a certain amount of time so I don't forget to do it. So I schedule and then use the Pomodoro or the time message in there. I also have intentionally created my living room, which is where I do my work, as a very quiet place. It doesn't have a lot going on. It's very simple. It doesn't have any of my toys that I have up here in my recording room because I need to focus at work. And so I kept it simple for that particular reason, just so that I wouldn't have any sort of problems focusing. Some other things that I have done in order to get past time ADHD thing is I make sure I don't get overwhelmed. I noticed, I don't know, usually I'm pretty good about things. And then my friend said to me, and I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, I can only handle so much at this moment. You are overwhelming me at this moment. And so making sure that things are slowed down a little bit so that I can write them down, I can get them down, remember to do them, schedule them so I have that ability to get them down. I also have, here, I'm going to take a look at my notes over here because I wrote some notes in here, is that I also have done what is called brain offloading. And so that essentially what it is that if I'm working on recording this podcast, I have everything else off. I'm not thinking about anything else. I have a notepad right here. I can instantaneously write things down. So it is off my brain and not spinning around in there. And I also make sure that when I start my day, I try to get a win. It is hard for me at times when, let's say you have something that's very sloggy to do and it's going to be hours and hours of trying to figure something out. I don't do that as my first task. I try to get a quick win in the morning. And so for whatever reason, that sort of focuses my brain much better than slogging through something at the very front of the day. And part of what I have been doing is, with my Mounjaro piece, is exercising and trying to get fit. If I can get fit, if I can exercise, I burn off some of that energy and some of that brain fog goes away after I do get done exercising. And there's many other tips involved in that. I did some episodes at the beginning of Start with Small Steps video that talk about ADHD and how you can tackle it. But like I said, this was a bit of a surprise to me how fast this came back. The food noise, the weight gain, I mean, lots of things did not come back, but this, boy, it roared back. So that's what I have to talk about today. Do we have any questions in the group at all? If anyone have, or are you having either GLP-1 cure your ADHD, or the lack of it has let it go roaring around in your head? All right. Well, I think we have a quiet group, and that's fine. I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate coming and watching my first experiment of doing a live show. Like I said, I'm hoping that in the future I might do more live shows. And if you are out there in the audience and you couldn't make it today, I know there's some people in England who have been watching this. If there's a good time for you, I basically stop work at 8 p.m. not 8 p.m. See, I'm losing already. Somewhere around 6:30 p.m. Central Time, 7 o'clock in there. And so if there's a time that would work for you, that you would like to do a live session or answer questions and answers or talk about issues, you can put it in the chat channel, or you can email me at jill@startwithsmallsteps.com. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate the people who did come today. This is my first experiment with new software, and well, I just have to try every feature a software has. So thank you much. Appreciate it, and have a great week.